Portions of America First are brought to you in part by Salem Now and the Streets Were My Father.
And, of course, the great Mike Lindell, the inventor of My Pillow, the pillow that never gets hot, never loses shape, guaranteed for 10 years. Because you're a friend of this show, Mike's going to give you up to 66% off his incredible line of more than 100 products. Support this great American. He's a man of God. He's a patriot. He's a truth teller. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code GORKA, or call them on 800-829-8468. It just feels good to buy American. Do it today. Call 800-829-8468, mypillow.com, promo code GORKA. We are back with an individual who I can't keep track of all the things he did in the Trump administration. It's great to have a former White House colleague in the studio with me today. His name is John Zadrozny. And now, I don't know if we have a copyright issue we have to deal with here. I'll have to talk to Mr. Miller. He comes from a policy institute that has the name America First. What a wonderful name. John, welcome to America First.
Dr. Gorka, thank you for having me on. Yes, it's been a privilege to work with you, and I'm glad to see you again. So America First Policy Institute is basically a group of people who are committed to ensuring that America First policies are carried out in the future. And we have a unique opportunity. We were part of an administration that broke with trends in the past from other administrations, actually did take the America First mantra seriously. We are now confronted with an administration that's arguably an America Last administration.
Yes.
And so we have a unique opportunity, probably more so than any point in American history, where you have two administrations back to back that couldn't be more different. And we intend to use our research skills, our experience, our connections to draw this out and show America what good policy for Americans and American citizens is like.
Yeah, it's truly stunning how much has changed in just the scant months that Joe Biden has been in the White House. Your organization is the America First Policy Institute. Check it out. Let's get its URL up on the Chiron. John, you have a sterling track record, not only your education, but who you worked for on Capitol Hill before you came to the Trump administration. Individuals like Darrell Issa, Senator Ted Cruz. I'm going to ask you the tough question. One of the pleasures of working for Donald Trump as president was not just his iconoclastic nature, but that for him there were no sacred cows. Just because D.C. did something a certain way for 20 years, he said, well, usually that's a reason not to keep doing it like that.
Correct.
He came in and he broke China because he said the elite has failed us, whether it's establishment GOP, whether it's the Democrats. They've really betrayed America for decades. That's great, and it worked. I mean, he accomplished so much. However, the November results are the November results. We can't unbreak that egg. What I miss is, and hopefully this is going to be the remit of the Institute, but I want to see more of that, is the new conservatism, whatever you want to call it, Trumpism, MAGA, AF, hasn't done a lot of the intellectual heavy lifting. You were one of the people that was injecting that thinking into the administration. Where is the organic, outside of AFPI, where is the organic flowering of America First principles outside of former Trump appointees like yourself?
Well, that's a great question. I think one of the things we're going to try and do is we're going to try and be different than the other groups who just they do a lot of babbling, and they basically just they're thinking out loud, and they don't really produce anything of value.
Well, they collect money to please their donors.
Yes. Our goal is to actually produce products and say, look, we looked at this, here's what we think. Maybe that gets us into the field, working with state and local leadership, where those policies are going to take root. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems we have is, I'm speaking in my personal viewpoint, like as Republicans, if you look at the two parties, they operate very differently. I think our ideas are going to be geared toward both parties. Whoever's open to receiving them can run with them, but running for, working with the states and locals and having that bulwark against the problems we're seeing at the federal level is really important. I think we've really abdicated as a nation with federalism between the states and the federal government. We've got to get them back in the game.
Are there people, we're talking to John Zadrozny of the America First Policy Institute, are there people on the left who we can talk with who actually do like America?
There are a few out there. They're not very vocal for their own well-being, but there are a couple. I know you see it a lot on the labor side. They're quiet and they grumble a little bit behind the scenes, and every now and then they say something, but unions and union labor is not being served by the Democrats' approach to illegal immigration.
Or by union management.
Correct. But there's power and money in it for them, and so their membership is secondary.
Yeah, I think, God willing, we'll see a whole new generation of union leaders after the full ramifications of the America Last policy of this administration sink in to the American class that really builds this nation every single day. We're going to continue our discussion with John Zadrozny, former colleague of mine from the Trump White House. Follow their work at AmericaFirstPolicy.com. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First, coming to you live from the ReliefFactor.com studios. Freedom is not free. Veteran-owned and veteran-operated Midas Gold Group understands that principle as well as any company. Today, many freedoms we have counted on as Americans are under assault. We must peacefully fight for the freedoms we hold dear and add freedom where we can to our own affairs. I just received an order from my precious metals dealers at Midas Gold Group that included these beautiful gold and silver American Eagle coins. Private ownership of physical gold and silver from Midas Gold Group is an excellent way of adding privacy and protection to your personal finances, not to mention tremendous profit potential. Banks are increasingly regulated, financial transactions are monitored, and the government is printing and expanding money supply at an exponential rate. I rest easier knowing that I am diversified with physical, gold, and private silver. Did you know that you can even own physical gold and silver as part of an existing IRA or 401k? Do what I did and speak to the gold experts at veteran-owned and operated Midas Gold Group. Ask for their guide to owning bullion and coins, as well as their gold IRA guide. Call them at 480-360-3000 or just go to them online at MidasGoldGroup.com.
Making sense out of today's news, here's Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Here's a shocking statistic. 70% of all American children who have a parent in prison end up in prison themselves. Sad, it's tragic, but we can help break that cycle. How? We get those children. There's millions of children with a mother or father in prison right now. We get them out of those communities where they are vulnerable, where they feel ashamed and guilty for the sins and mistakes of their parents, and we get them to a safe summer camp, a Christian summer camp. That's what every single year we ask you to support. It's the Prison Fellowship Angel Tree program. You could literally be saving lives. Just $200 pays for a week for a child, for a young boy or girl to find community, fellowship, and safety in a Christ-centric summer camp. Please support it. And it doesn't matter if it's just $20, we'll put it all together. If it's $1,000, that's 5 children. Will you make a difference today? Remember what our Lord and Savior told us. Come unto me, the little children. Please go to our website, sebgorka.com, and make a tax-deductible donation in any amount. That's SEBGORKA, sebgorka.com, at the Angel Tree banner at the top of the page, or you can ring Prison Fellowship directly on 888-206-2794. That's 888-206-2794. Okay. Immigration. The border. Could it be worse than it is right now? Let's ask a real expert, former Deputy Assistant to the President, as I was, former Senior Advisor for Policy to President Trump. His name is John Zadrozny, and he now has a rather modest portfolio of Homeland Security, counterterrorism, China influence, and immigration at the new America First Policy Institute. John, how bad can it get? Can it get worse?
It can always get worse, Dr. Gorka.
Thanks.
And so I think that's the unfortunate lesson that we're learning here. But what's I think the American people really need to appreciate is that this is intentional. This is not some sort of Keystone Cops happenstance disaster because Joe Biden doesn't know what he's doing. they are fueling a problem which will allow them to then pivot to not do or do certain things in the future.
It couldn't be accidental if you look at who he chose for Secretary of Homeland Security.
Correct.
I mean, this guy has, Mayorkas has a track record.
You have a gentleman who, I used to work at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We had something called the Mayorkas protocols, which were designed to keep us out of the involvement in issuing visas because he intervened on behalf of Terry McAuliffe to get visas issued for a fake green company. So that's someone who should have never been confirmed to that post, but it is what it is.
So I've been there. I took my team down there. We filmed. We saw the evidence everywhere of the traffickers, 6,000 a day that we find. What is, given the human suffering, the rapes, the abuse, the sickness, everything else, explain to our listeners who don't have hearts made of shriveled black antimatter, what is the logic? Why are they literally operating something we haven't seen? There's nowhere on the planet. This is Mark Morgan made me realize this. There is nowhere on this planet. I don't care if you're Vanuatu, Mauritius, or India. Nowhere has open borders except America. How do they? What is the objective here? Truly,
I think all that pain and suffering is a price that the Biden administration is willing to pay for future amnesty. I think they just want a massive number of people in the country illegally. They want a clogged asylum system. They want a porous border so that in a year they can throw up their arms and say, well, I guess we just have to give everybody amnesty.
With the expectation that once they become naturalized citizens, 99% of them are going to vote Democrat and keep them in power forever.
That's what I would say. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where they would allow millions of people to come in if it didn't benefit them as a party.
Right.
You know, and one thing to think about, Dr. Gorka, is that, you know, funny thing happens when you spend the last 50 years aborting children in the womb, you're short about 60 million voters. And so I think you've got a situation where the party, as loud and shrill as they can be at times, and they're not all Democrats are, but many are, I think there's a sense of demographic desperation in this move.
Interesting.
It's not, I can't prove it, but to me, it just seems like they know they're shrinking, you know, and when you're a party of abortion and you've got nowhere else to turn internally because your your ideas are dead, you're going to just import new people from third world countries who will vote for you because you gave them something.
That's shocking. It makes absolute sense, but it's absolutely shocking. So what is there anything that can be done until the next elections, until conservatives take back the House, the Senate, and the White House? Is it just telling the world what's happening? What is the best that we can do? What is AFPI concentrating on?
Well, we are specifically focused on a message of security first. Like any conversations about anything else anyone wants to do are secondary to finishing the wall, providing the men and women of the Border Patrol with the authority to do their jobs, and doing other things we can to enforce immigration law internally and along the border. And I think that's a necessary prerequisite for any other conversations.
And then when it comes to what I asked in the last segment, maybe AFP could be the place. Don't we need right now, I mean, like yesterday, to start the detailed and the comprehensive discussion, because this isn't about one man. This isn't just about Donald Trump. This is about America. Shouldn't we begin the all-encompassing discussions on what America first, what MAGA means, or what conservatism means in the 21st century?
Yes, and so one of the biggest challenges we've got is defining America first, because I think some people have taken the term and used it, but it has nothing to do with focusing on the country or the citizenry. But I think those are the two things. Is it good for the United States, and is it good for the American people? And if it's not, it's just not something we're going to consider. And it's got to focus on citizens. I think that's a very important thing.
What a radical concept, that doing things for Americans is a good thing.
Go figure.
That's the crazy upside-down world we live in. He is now the director of the America First Policy Institute Center for Homeland Security and Immigration. We need to get you back. We need to talk maybe counterterrorism.
I'm available.
All right?
Love to.
In immigration counterterrorism. In the meantime, check out John Zadrozny and the whole team at AmericaFirstPolicy.com. It's a good name for an organization. AmericaFirstPolicy.com. I'm Sebastian Gorka, host of America First, here on the Salem Radio Network, coming to you from the ReliefFactor.com studios, just outside the insalubrious, fetid swamp that is Washington, D.C.